Well, it's a moment of truth for France as voting is underway in the country for a second round of parliamentary polls, which is expected to leave the far right as the dominant force in a divided and paralyzed parliament. Midday turnout in French elections is highest in 43 years. Voting began at 8 a.m. local time and it will continue till 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. in major cities when voting estimates will be released. 501 out of 577 seats are up for grabs in the runoff. 289 will be needed for an absolute majority. French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal was among the early voters to cast his ballot in Paris suburb. As voters take to the polling stations to cast their ballots, the stakes are high for the future of France's political landscape, while the anti-immigration Eurosceptic party may not win an outright majority. A hung parliament would leave a divided France in political limbo and weaken its international standing.
Je pense qu'il y a quand même un challenge pour la France. On est en train de passer dans une autre époque, donc espérons que ça sera la bonne. Et puis de toute façon, moi depuis que j'ai 18 ans, je n'ai jamais loupé un seul vote, donc je vote quoi qu'il advienne.
On voit qu'il y a de plus en plus de racisme depuis le premier tour. On voit énormément de vidéos qui circulent avec des insultes envers des gens. Et c'est de manière gratuite, on avait l'impression que c'était caché. Et dès qu'il y a eu le premier tour, en fait, c'est libéré. Il y a de plus en plus de vidéos comme ça et c'est pour empêcher ça que je vais voter le premier.
More than 200 candidates have withdrawn their candidacy to block national rally coming to power. However, much uncertainty remains if voters will go along with these efforts to block Marine Le Pen's far-right party. Ahead of voting in the mainland France, voters in France's overseas territories and those living abroad cast their ballots. First French region to vote was Saint-Pierre, a small French archipelago off the coast of Canada. They were followed by residents of French Caribbean territories including Guadeloupe, Martinique, as well as French Guyana in South America and French citizens living in the US. Polling stations in the Pacific territory of New Caledonia open next. Opinion polls indicate far-right National Rally and its allies likely to secure between 205 and 230 seats in the runoff vote. However, it will fall short of an absolute majority. New Popular Front is likely to win 145 to 175 seats, while Macron's centrist bloc will end up winning 130 to 162 seats. Elijah J. Magnier is a war correspondent and also an analyst. He is now joining us live from Paris. Mr. Magnier, welcome to the show. President Macron appears intent on executing what he calls a clarification of French politics that he hopes will eventually leave three clear camps of the far right, the center, and the hard left. Does that seem likely, or will it backfire again for the president?
Thank you for having me. I think the president has been extremely clever in just calling for an early Assemblée Nationale election, because normally it is a tradition in France that the French people are always unhappy with their prime minister, whatever the decisions are. So what President Macron is doing 3 years before the end of his mandate or 2 years after the beginning of his mandate is allowing either the far right or the far left to try and become prime minister and take unpopular decisions so people can choose his party even if he doesn't have the right to present himself to the elections after the 2 terms, but he can do that in between when a new president will be elected, perhaps of his party in 3 years. So today people are unhappy with the far right, are unhappy with the far left, and they certainly don't want to vote for Macron. Many people voted blank. People went to the far left, even if the program between the far right and the far left economically is more or less the same, with the far right just adding a little bit of pepper relating to the immigration, but on the tax issues, on the nationalization of the company, on increasing the taxes, on trying to come out of the 3 trillion euro debts of the country. Nobody has really a good plan for that. And this is why Macron understands that none of the two sides, the far right or the far left, will succeed, and therefore the increase of taxes will be very unpopular. Going back to reduce the retirement is again not going to work, because today there are first and second generation who are working to pay for their parents when they retire at the age of 60 or 64.
Okay.
So there is no clear plan, really.
Mr. Magnier, even though the far right is poised to clinch the second round of polling, albeit without an absolute majority, why are French voters or the nation mulling over, or in essence divided over a hung parliament? What would that do to the politics of France?
Well, first of all, there would be a cohabitation between a president and another party that is incompatible with the policy of the president. And the president will be dedicated only to foreign policy and defense. The prime minister will deal with domestic issues. Now, neither side, the far left or the far right, will have the majority, i.e. 289 out of 577 seats at the National Assembly. This is why there are coalitions that need to be formed. The far right said, if I don't have the majority, I am not going to rule. We have to still see if this is going to be implemented or not. The candidate of the far right is not really capable, 28 years old, who has never finished school, and he's not really showing capability in having clear idea of what he wants. And this is why Macron, who knows that people are not going to vote for him, is stepping back and watching both sides fighting or trying to form coalitions that are impossible. Having said that, he has the right after 1 year to again call for another election at the National Assembly. So he's going to give them the chance and then come out as a hero who's watching both sides fighting, not capable of pulling out one government that is serving the French population, and perhaps showing that at the end of the day, although he is not very popular, he is better than the worst choices that are available today.
All right, I've been talking to Mr. Elijah J. Magnier, who is a war correspondent and also an analyst. Mr. Magnier, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.